Thank you for listening to Local SEO today. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode. Joining me today is Rhett Power. He's the co-founder of Courageous Leadership, a consultancy that helps businesses liberate through courage. He is also the author of the Entrepreneur's Book of Actions. Thanks for joining me today, Rhett.
It's nice to be with you, John. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the first thing I always ask people is tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what do people know you by?
Well, I love your intro, liberating companies and leaders through courage. That's fantastic. I am an author. I've read a couple books, got a third one coming out in October, and I write for Forbes, Inc. and a bunch of other publications. My main day-to-day thing is working with leaders and C-suite leaders and founders to find courage. I think we have sort of another epidemic going on, or maybe it's a pandemic, I don't know, of a lack of courage in business today. And so we try to help people find that again and find that because we believe that change is hard. We know that. But the hardships that come from not changing are always harder. So we help companies liberate from paralysis and inaction.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, history. Did you go to school, your upbringing, your, even experience, etc. Yeah, I would love to hear about that.
Man, 50 years in a short time. I had a blessed sort of childhood. I had a lot of freedom, got a lot of freedom to explore and to explore different things. Traveled a lot when I was young, got a chance to do that. I think what's different about my journey is at 30, I joined the U.S. Peace Corps. And it really came from a decision. And this is when I start to think about what were those moments in my life that were really transitional, really took courage. And I remember that moment because I had a great job. I was in a radio career. I was working for Clear Channel Communications, had a really, if I looked back at it, a very prescribed sort of life, right? Like, 2-car garage, house, white picket fence, the whole dream there, middle class dream, I guess. And maybe that scared me. Maybe I just didn't want that. I don't know what it was, but I decided that I needed something a little different. So I joined the Peace Corps, actually went to serve in Uzbekistan, spent 2 great years there. And that actually led me to a career right after that in international development with USAID. And after about 6 years of that in places like Central Asia and Afghanistan, I decided that I needed to do something else. So I got that gut feeling again, that nagging feeling that we all get. And a lot of times we push it down and we ignore it because it's telling us to do something crazy and ridiculous and something that's a little scary. But I listened to it again, and I had been talking to a friend every Friday night for a couple of years over beer and pizza in Kazakhstan about starting our own thing, doing our own thing. And so one day we kind of looked at each other and said, we got to either shut up about this or we got to do it. And so we both resigned, again, great jobs, dream jobs, helping people, doing good work. Work that had a purpose, but again, we quit. We went back to the U.S. We started looking around for that company that we could invest in, we could buy, that we could bring a good management and energy to, and that took a long time. And we had a couple interesting missteps there, a couple of interesting things that we looked at. We looked at the one that I always tell people about is this dead body removal company. I mean, he had a $3 million EBITDA. He had a patent on body bag or a type of body bag. Great business, right? Fantastic business. Had great revenue, had contracts with state governments and city governments. but we couldn't get excited about that. I mean, I was going to build some sort of body storage facility in the back. But anyway, couldn't do it, couldn't get excited about that. And we found this tiny little children's toy company in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And my lawyer said to us, if you buy this company, I'm going to disown you. They had no books, no records. I mean, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. All he showed us was a bag full of cash and said, I make money, see? It was really shady. But we bought it anyway because we loved the product and we saw the reaction that kids had when they saw the product. And we were able to turn that little one product company, it wasn't even really a company, into an Inc. 500 company. We were the fastest growing company in the state of South Carolina. We were Inc. 500 company years and years in a row. We had our first 3 products we turned into Toys of the Year nationally. So we were able to sort of take that and turn and put our energy into that and turn it into a global company where we sold in 35 different countries, made product for Toys R Us, Walmart, all the big names, but Animal Planet. And so that journey was, again, just fantastic. It was like a roller coaster and a rocket ship at some point, and learned a lot of lessons. And then again, in 2014, got that sort of the feeling, again, it's time for a change. Somebody else needs to come into this and bring a new energy to it. And we sold the company. And ever since, I have had this desire to coach and help young entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs to grow their companies and to be better at what they do. And that's the evolution and how sort of we've come to Courageous Leadership, which was I met people along that journey. And last year, Ryan Berman and I decided to bring Courageous Leadership to life. And that was sort of a combination of all of our experience in coaching and consulting and working with leaders. And that's where Courageous Leadership was born. That's
amazing. And I'm going to ask you this because you've endured a lot during the last 50 years or so. I wanted to ask you, like, going into starting your business, buying that business, did you buy an existing business and you already had savings?
Yeah.
And you saw potential. You saw that you really were passionate with trying to bring a smile to these children. But for those people that don't have a lot of funds, or they don't have the ability to get a loan or savings, how would you go about bringing that to fruition, right? Because you probably bought a system. You probably bought already a product, right? You probably bought a book of revenue, right? Or clients or list or something to get it from 0.0 to whatever was starting to then grow it to Inc. 500. Do you feel there was already an established base before you bought it? And then how did you grow it from there?
Yeah, no, there was nothing. So the guy, he literally made a couple of hundred of these a week, and we handmade them at first. This was a little eco aquarium thing. He handmade them during the week, and then on the weekends he would pack them in a van and drive to a little trade show, a little consumer pet show. I mean, wherever he could sell them, a little fair. So no, he didn't have a book of business. He had an awful way to produce and actually scale. There was no system. There was no, the system that he had to make this was not scalable at all. I mean, if we had any chance of getting this beyond where we could drive it on a weekend, we had to figure out how to scale it, how to ship it, and none of that existed, and how to manufacture more so that we could go broader. So there was nothing like that. We fell in love. I mean, if I had gone to business school, business schools would have made me turn in my diploma, because this was an awful, again, it's why my attorney said, if you buy this, I'm going to disown you, because there was nothing to it. There was no proof of concept. There was nothing. We just fell in love with the product. And we went to a trade show with him one weekend, and we saw how kids reacted to it. That was the only proof. That was the only proof we had. That was, we bought it completely on faith. And so, we didn't have anything to go on except our own gut feeling, again, that we could make this work. We could figure out the scale. We could figure out how to ship it. We could figure out all those massive challenges that it had, not to mention, how do we get it into stores? Because I'm not going to spend the next 10 years of my life driving this product around the Southeast to try to sell it to anybody that'll buy it. We did a lot of that. We did that for 2 years, but and that was just so we could survive. I mean, I was living in my van most of the time, out of the back of my van those 2 years. I think we drove 150,000 miles each. We bought another van so that both of us could do it. So, I mean, we didn't really have the money, and we didn't really have any of what you're talking about. So we had to bootstrap it. I mean, nobody would give us money. I mean, you also have to remember, when we were getting started, the financial crisis happened, right? And so even when we had a $6 million EBITDA, 4 years later, we couldn't get money to save our life. So, I mean, to me, the reason I think it worked is because we didn't have money. I think we would have been awful business people if we had had money. But, that first office that we were in that until 5 or 6 years later. We were all on top of each other. I mean, we had a small office. My partner was in that office. Our assistant was in that office. Our designer was in that office. We had like 6 people in that little tiny little office, about 200 square feet. So we did that intentionally, and because we didn't have money, it made us pay attention to every detail, every little thing that we had to watch. We watched because we didn't have a choice. And so that being that lean and that hungry and that having to watch every dime was actually really, really good discipline for us. And I actually think that that's what made us reinvest everything that we made. It made us really be calculated and conscious of that. And I think that helped us grow.
That's amazing. And I love that story because you just acknowledge that all you need is people that are excited about the product. And going to these shows and trade shows, that's all you need. Like, if there's a need in the marketplace, people are willing to pay for a product and service. And that's the proof. People are willing to pay for something that's out there. It's not rocket science. It's very similar to every successful business. People are doing all these surveys and pre-studies and all this information that they should just go proof of concept with a product or a service and see if people are willing to pay for it. And I love that, because that's what a true entrepreneur is all about. They bootstrap, they figure it out, and they grow afterwards. So if you don't mind me asking, how did you start scaling? Like, what was the pivotal point from, you driving 150,000 miles a year or whatnot? When did you start seeing, like, I gotta start improving my process, systems, people, software, to scale to a level that it doesn't involve my time as much as like just driving?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really fantastic question. And it's a long sorted thing. So we had started scaling it in that 2 years. What we figured out was there was demand for the product, but again, we couldn't get any money. We couldn't get a line of credit, really. We both had great credit too. Like this was just a matter of, we were in the financial crisis. It was 2008, and nobody was going to pay attention to us right at that time. We were still doing $150,000 a year. and still sort of scrapping along. But we had figured out the scaling part of it, where we can make more, manufacture more. We had bought another truck and had somebody else driving. So we had like 3 routes across the country going on, and we were going to trade shows every weekend. And we knew we were trying to get a break, right? We knew we had focused in on the toy business, and so we had gotten some store accounts. But again, it was labor intensive, right? It was we were having to deliver the product, hand deliver it, because we couldn't get FedEx yet in our UPS to ship it. And so, although everybody was interested, like we had a lot of interest, we had stores that were interested, and that we had a FedEx rep that was seeing what we were doing, a local FedEx rep that was out of the Tennessee hub and Tennessee, the big shipping hub there. And it was actually Toy Fair in 2009, I think. It might have been 2009. And we had just, by luck, on one of those routes, we had stopped at a toy store a lot of different times. I'd stopped there, and my partner stopped there on the route and talked to this toy store owner. And she finally said to us, "God, if you stop coming in, I'll take a box of these. But you just got to stop coming in because you're annoying the heck out of me." And that week she sold, like in a couple of days, she sold all of them. And you have to remember too, like the toy stores back then and that time, and still today, the small toy stores were getting hammered. They were losing toy stores right and left, the little small ones anyway, the mom and pop toy stores. And she called back a couple of days later and said, "I got to have another box. Like you got to bring them. I'm out." And this happened over and over and over and over again. And I remember her call. She said, "Rhett, you've got to come up to Toy Fair in New York in February." And I think this was like January. And she said, "You need to come up to Toy Fair." And I'm like, I don't have the money to like stay in New York. I don't have the money to like register for this thing. I'm looking at it right now online, and it's like $3,000 to get a booth. I'm like, I can't. She was like, "You got to come to Toy Fair. I don't care if you guys sleep in your van, like in your sleeping bag. You got to come and go to Toy Fair." And so we scraped together like the money to do it. We didn't have to. We ended up staying like way out in New Jersey somewhere, in a hotel. But she's like, "You got to come. We got a booth like back in the back corner, like it was the last booth that they would possibly give us. We had like a handmade sign. It was really awful." And that week, what I didn't know about her is that she had become the president. She was the president elect or whatever of the National Toy Store Association, the Small Toy Store Association, ASTRA. And she was the incoming president that year. And she stood up in their annual general meeting and said, "You have got to buy this product because it's the only thing in my store selling right now during this financial crisis. I'm selling like 30 of these things a week. You got to buy this." We walked out of Toy Fair, a $9 million company. And Brookstone came up, Brookstone, and said, "We got to have this in our store, all 300 of our stores." We walked out just completely transformed. And that actually was sort of the impetus on how we were able to sort of blow it up within a few months, because that gave us the leverage to go to FedEx and say, "Look, you got to help us figure out how to ship this thing." And because otherwise, we've got these POs for stores all over the country. We got to figure out how to ship to Brookstone. We got to figure out how to ship to California. We got to figure out how to ship all over the country. They actually gave us our rep went to bat for us. She got us a technology grant. They came in, they put computers, weighing systems and systems on our production line. They brought their box people in and they pressure tested it and crushed it and did all. They helped us figure out how to ship it. And so all of a sudden we were able to package this thing and ship this thing, which nobody would give us the help and attention before. But now that we had all these POs, they were very interested in helping figure out how they could do that, right? And so it was really that toy fair that helped us sort of overcome a lot of the hurdles. And the other thing that we did, which was fundamental in us being able to scale this, was we went to all of our vendors. We actually got in the car right after Toy Fair and drove and saw. We had a plastics manufacturer in Kentucky. We had somebody in Chicago. We had somebody out in California. We actually got in a plane to do that, running up the credit card bill tremendously to do that. But we went and saw all 6 of our major suppliers and said, look, here's what, brought the POs and showed them all the stuff and said, look, we got to have your help. Like, there's no way we can pay for all the plastics that we need. There's no way we can buy all the stuff that we needed to do this. And to a T, every single one of them gave us the credit and said, look, we know it's going to be 120 days before Brookstone pays you the first part. We're going to give you credit. And they hung in there with us, that first year, because it was the scaling up was bumpy, but they all hung with us and gave us as much credit as we needed and payment flexibility and all that. So, without all of that, we wouldn't have gotten it. And I will say that I give my partner credit for that, but he really stayed on top. I was the sales and product guy, and he handled the books and the financial stuff. But he always made sure that, like, if we weren't going to pay somebody, we called him. He was very good at like keeping in communication with all those people that were waiting on us and keeping those relationships really close. And so that's how it happened, and it was just that really was that gave us the leverage. It forced us. We were already thinking about how to scale. It just gave us the leverage to go out and do it.
That's amazing. I love the story because it just shows what, hard work, but not only that, like, yes, there's a little bit of luck, but it's persistence, right? It's like you going to that store every day or every couple of days. And, how many no's did you have before you had an opportunity? And during that opportunity, you had no idea what leverage she had or how much clout, right? And that's what it takes. Just one person can change the luck of your entire career, your life, right? Because without that one individual giving you the opportunity, what would your business have been, right? Maybe
we would have closed up.
Right?
I was absolutely tired of driving around the country. I mean, we were not long for throwing in the towel and saying, well, that was a good try. I mean, we really weren't. I mean, it just wasn't scaling the way we had hoped, and we weren't getting the help that we needed from the FedExes of the world or whatever. But that's not. I mean, I get it. I mean, it was tough times for everybody, and everybody was trying to survive, and so we were no different. But you're right. I mean, it was one person who said, "You got to do this," and I kept saying to her, "It's great, but I can't. I don't see how I can afford it."
So are you still connected with her? Like, do you still talk? Are you still good friends?
On occasion. I think she's retired now from the business, but yeah, I mean, I remember her very fondly.
I would be her biggest advocate. I would be like best friends or giving her everything she wants because she basically turned your life around, right?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it.
So regarding, okay, and I know I'm asking some details, but during that transition where you finally got some POs, you started ramping up, scaling, was it just you and your partner, or did you start hiring people in the right places with the right experience, with the right kind of, team attitudes, processes in place, systems with expertise? Or did you guys try to do it yourself and learn along the way?
A little bit of both. I mean, we were still, we were in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, not the hotbed of talent that does international shipping and not the hotbed of logistics and everything else. So, with the skills that we were looking for. So, I mean, we really did have a ragtag team, honestly. But you know, what was really interesting is, I mean, we, just like anybody else, any company, you go through your challenges in hiring, you go through your challenges in scaling, and we had to ramp up in a massive way. I mean, we had to hire about 90 people ultimately, and we had to build a facility, and we had to build capability in China to get where we wanted to go. So we had a lot of people that we needed to bring on, Salesforce, all that. And so, we did hire. We hired a few consultants. We hired some skilled people. We had one really good skilled person in the shipping side who helped us really understand the shipping side of things. We hired people away in China from other companies, and were able to build good capacity there. But all in all, we still had to build that first product in the U.S., and that never changed. And so, we had a good team. I mean, we hired not necessarily for great skill, but we hired for people who were hungry and willing to try and hustle and work hard. And that's where we were. And that, as we evolved as a company, we did have to hire more skilled people as we had the ability to do that and the financial stability to do that. But we also always hired for willingness and hunger and willingness to try new things and work ethic. We always hired on that first and foremost, even when we were looking for skilled people. But we started building a team. We had to start building a team. We had to start putting processes in place. But no matter how we did that, and that was bumpy in some respects. When you're trying to hire 100 people in a matter of 2 months, there's no good way that's going to happen unless you have processes. And we didn't have processes. We had to hire the bodies, and we had to figure out how badly we did that, and how we needed to redo that in some cases. But those first 100 people or so, a lot of those weren't skilled. A lot of that was how to box something in a box and put tape on it and put a label on it. And so we had to figure all that out first. And those a lot of those things we could teach. A lot of the stuff that we were hiring for then we could teach. It got more technical when you're talking about graphic design and designers and accounting people and accounts receivable. Those are skills that we had to hire for. But we scaled fast, and so it was bumpy and ugly in some cases. But you learn, you get more mature, and you learn your mistakes. You learn how to ask the right questions when you hire, and you still can be bumpy even if you have good processes. So awesome. It was a lot of fun, but it was a challenge.
So again, did you have any background in merchandising, or did you or your partner know much about this industry before you jumped in?
Not a single bit. I came from radio, and then I came from international development. My partner came from the construction industry, and then into international development after his graduate degree. So no, we didn't. None of us had. I had no experience in consumer products. But to an extent, I kind of see that as in hindsight as a benefit. I fired a consultant once for telling me that I couldn't do that because that's not how the industry does it. And I didn't subscribe to that. I kind of believe, look, you can't tell me that the person that started Hasbro or Mattel or Spin Master or any of the other big players in the Lego always did it the way somebody else in the industry did it. You don't get to be that big and that significant by playing in the same head place or the same space, right? you do that by thinking creatively. You do that by thinking outside of the box, and you do that by thinking big. And so I just wasn't. I didn't. That lack of experience didn't really bother me so much, because I felt like, you make a good product and you get out there and you try to sell it and you hustle and you talk to the right people, then that's what's going to win the day. And we felt like we were making good products, and we had something that we were making products that people wanted, and that had an audience and had a uniqueness about them. So that was what was important to us. We had this sign above our door that said "Be significant," and that really meant a lot to us in terms of everybody, no matter what position you had. It was sort of became a mantra, or a sort of our ethos. I mean, it drove us, because we wanted to be significant in the industry, and every single one of us in the organization, whatever our job was, whether it's putting tape on a box, or making sure the bills get paid, or making sure that we go up and we talk to Toys R Us about a new product, whatever your role in that was, it was important that you do it and be the absolute best that you could be at it. And then we felt like that would win the day, no matter our experience or not.
That's awesome. So it was fully self-funded. There was no other VC or any loans that you got. That's awesome. And then regarding the exit, I know you mentioned you eventually sold it. That's when you basically moved on to your next part of your career, which is now what you're doing today, which is the consultancy, the book, the coaching, etc. Yeah. How has that been since you've left, the bigger kind of business to now doing it more about yourself, right? It's all about you on an individual level, trying to help and inspire entrepreneurs. Do you find it as significant, as challenging, as rewarding, or like maybe, you share your experiences since you've been doing it now for a couple years?
Yeah. Look, I will push back a little bit on it's about me. It really isn't. One of the things about coaching is that it's most definitely about the person that you're helping, and helping that person be better for their company, and be better for their people that they work with, and their teams. And so it is. I don't think of it in that sense. Now, we're also growing too. I mean, this is a business, and the reason that Ryan and I brought our respective companies together is because we feel like that there is a real market and a real desire for companies to find that courage, and to find and to change that culture of paralysis and inaction and things that hold companies back. And so, at the same time, I mean, we're growing our company and thinking about how do we scale it and become even larger. I mean, we've actually just hired a CEO and brought on another partner, and so we see this as a movement, of a courageous movement, less than a company. We see it as a movement, and so it's not. I don't think any differently than I did back then. I look at opportunity and growth in the same way, and I think that there's a real opportunity to, and I've seen an appetite in a different way. I mean, I'm not dealing with 12-year-olds, but there's still an appetite for being better and improvement. And if you look at what's happening in business now, I mean, there's almost sort of this business apocalypse going on, right? Companies used to stay on the Fortune 500 75 years. They're now staying on that list 11 years. Things are just getting completely disrupted, and there's not an industry that's immune from that. And so, companies are looking at how they can change and evolve, and they're doing that because they know if they don't, they're going to die. And so this is really a matter of life and death. And so, I don't know if that answers the question, but I kind of see this as a huge movement. And so to me, it's just as exciting as the toy company in a different way. I mean, I'm older, I'm more mature, and things are, I'm a lot calmer than I used to be, and a lot more probably steady. Um, but a lot of that is probably comes from what I experienced with the toy. I'll take those lessons with me forever. What I experienced in that business, and the pace, and the energy, and the all hours of the day, 24 hours a day, you know, I'll take that, and those lessons are going to be ever with me. But there's that same energy about courage right now, and the companies that we're working with. We're working with some of the top 50 companies in the world right now, and it's. I had a CEO the other day tell me this is the best thing that they've ever done as an executive team, and that this has just been absolutely life changing for them. And so uh, that tells me that we're on to something in terms of something that can really help people.
That's amazing. And then in terms of like the next adventure for you, right? Like
Mhm.
I know you've been doing this for a couple years now, and it sounds like you're very passionate at helping these larger companies. Is there a specific vertical, niche, industry? I know your background's merchandising, but you also did radio, etc. But before then, is there a specific industry that you kind of go after to do this courage framework or model
Yeah.
for?
No, I don't, just like going into the toy business, I think we probably could have done, if it hadn't been the toy business, whatever the business we would have gone into, I think we could have done really well. Because it's, to me, I don't believe I have to have a knowledge of a particular type of industry. I'm not going to become a brain surgeon, but, I think if it's a matter of making a product and selling it to a customer, those fundamentals, I think we were really, really good at. And so we could have applied to any kind of business. And I kind of look at it the same now. Like I'm a mechanic. I kind of look at myself as a mechanic, right? I'm a business mechanic. I'm not going to go in and tell you your books are a mess or any of that, but I can diagnose uh, culture problems. I can diagnose, behavioral problems. I can help solve some of those culture issues. Um, I in my when I first got started as a consultant and coach, I did a lot of the under the hood with the books or the sales process, and I've moved a lot away from that now in more of the behavioral and cultural part of the business. And uh, I forgot where I was going with that, but anyway, I think to me that's where I want to focus and put my time. And I think that's where I can help in no matter what the industry is or what the kind of business it is, because those are similar problems, those are similar issues, no matter the industry.
That's amazing. Any big mistakes that you would like to share over the last couple years or even at your other toy
Mhm.
company?
Wow, we got a couple of hours. I mean,
Or some of the most largest ones, and then you know maybe some positive things that you've kind of learned from them.
yeah, I mean, we made mistakes every day. I mean, we did some great things. I don't know that I was so intentional in the toy business. We ended up creating a pretty good culture. I don't think it was on purpose, but we had good people. We hired good people, and they helped make the culture what it was. Uh, and so, in terms of mistakes, yeah, I mean, we made product mistakes all the time. In that business, we had probably 60-70% of the products you make don't really work out financially. So we made mistakes every year with product. We got better at it, but when you're moving that fast and you got to get a product to market, you take some chances. We learned to be better at it. I think we spent $100,000 trying to implement SAP. That was a huge mistake. But again, you learn pretty quick that that was a dumb idea. But again, we thought it was the right thing. We made mistakes on letting people get away with not paying, which, we probably lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on things that we never collected on. But again, we were trying to extend the same courtesy that people had extended to us, but you learn your lessons. Um, so, those are all big mistakes, but they were not unrecoverable. And I kind of feel like, we tried a bunch. We won sometimes, we didn't win sometimes. None of it killed us. So we were the better for it, and we learned lessons. And I will say this, the crisis and the things that happened. I mean, we had supplier issues sometimes. We had regulatory problems sometimes because of federal government, a consumer protection agency, stopping a product or something, or making a new regulation, as we were in production for a toy. Those things happened all the time, and you learn. There's a maturity, I think, that you get once you've been through so many different crises and so many different things that entrepreneurship throws at you, and it throws something at you every day, whether it's a personnel thing, a product thing, a customer thing. You get to the point where those things don't bother you so much. You don't lose sleep over those things. I mean, that the first day that we bought the company, we had one client that we did take from the old owner, and he was a local store, and we went in, and he had 2 or 3 stores. So to us, that was a massive client, and I think he spent $300 a week or something. Not significant in the big scheme of things, but at that time we're like, oh no, big client. We walked in and he started yelling at us. I mean, day one, and it just completely rattled us. And we walked out of there like, what the hell just happened? Oh my God. And, thinking about it now, I'm like, he was just negotiating. He was just he had a chance to renegotiate his price. So he was going to renegotiate his price. He wasn't mad at us. He wasn't upset. It wasn't personal. In fact, he shook our hands and patted us on the back when we walked out. I was so confused, but it was just it was a negotiating tactic.
It's good to get a good perspective and be relative in terms of now that you look back, because I've been doing this for 8 years, my agency, and just very similar. Like the first couple clients, they worked me. It was hard because it was earned, but you learn, right? You make mistakes, you learn who your ideal customers are, who you want to be as a company, who you want to cultivate as a culture, your staff. And this is a part of this journey, right? And a lot of people have to learn by doing and making these mistakes. And hopefully these mistakes don't really hurt you at the end for you to fold the business. But even if you do, at least you'll try not to do it again on your next journey or adventure, right? In terms of entrepreneurship. So I love that. In terms of, I know I just have a couple more questions here. Mm-hmm. So what drives you today? Like what pushes you to do what you do? And what motivates you to get you up in the morning to be so passionate?
Yeah, I love what I do, and I'm having fun. I think I think what I realized with the toy company is I wasn't having any fun anymore, right? And so when that stops happening, I can easily move on to the next act. But I actually think that I'm doing now what I was supposed to do. I think that whole journey was to get to this place, and I don't see a massive change in that anytime soon. I got tired of the toy company because of the day-to-day. It got mundane, right? The challenge in it ceased, and I didn't like making sure John showed up for work. You know, I didn't like making sure Rhett showed up for work. And so I don't see that happening here. Like, we've hired a CEO to run the company so that we can do what we love. And I think that's a big difference. And, you know, I love developing the coaching programs. I love doing the coaching. Of course, at some point, you know, if we do grow like we intend, that I'll do less and less, and that I'll be doing a lot more of running things. But, you know, I think we've done it so that we can focus on the part of it that we love, creating the programs, creating the content, creating the and helping, you know, do some of the coaching and the stuff that we want to do. So I think you know, I don't see that changing. I really am having fun. The nice thing about, I have the worst case of ADD in the world, and the nice thing about working with leaders in different industries, it like challenges me to learn. It challenges me to learn about those industries, about those kind of companies, and what their challenges are. And so to me, it's, you know, I come in every day and I've got a new challenge ahead, and that keeps me really inspired. And so I don't know. I'll get back to you in a few years if that's changed and tell you why. But right now I don't see any kind of anything different on the horizon. This is great. I'm having fun. So as long as that's happening, I'm going to continue doing it.
I think that's the most pivotal thing that you have to acknowledge for yourself, right? Like, you got to enjoy what you're doing, bring happiness to your life, right? Have joy. And if you wake up in the morning doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like you're going in doing something that you dread. But you're actually helping others achieve whatever their purpose is, right? And by doing more of that, it brings way more fulfillment. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that was, for me, that was a key, right? I don't want to wake up with regrets. I don't want to sit down as an old man on my front porch in my rocking chair and say, well, that life sucked, or that life was painful, right? Or, wow, why did you do that for so long? You hated it. I'm not interested in that life, or those kind of regrets. So.
And I love that you're taking control, right? It's like, I would have, could have, but you're actually doing. There's a big difference. And as an entrepreneur, you guys are doing something. And I love entrepreneurs. I love business owners. They're doing something as opposed to waiting for things to happen. One last question is, aside from business, what are some of the other pillars that really mold you as a human, as a person? Because I know we've only talked about your kind of business career journey. How about you yourself, right? Like, what really are the major pillars in your life?
Family's important. My boys, and you know, taking care of them and having them be happy, healthy, and successful is important. I have hobbies and things I love to do that sort of give me sort of therapy for me. You know, I love to be on the water, whether it's on the sailboat, or we were at the beach last week, so we got to do some surfing and diving. So all of that to me is really where you find that peace and that inner sort of tranquility, or whatever you want to call it, but your inner zen, or whatever you want to call it. But those things are important to me and what make me me. So I do a lot of reading and writing, obviously, and so that's cathartic, as well as keeps me understanding where things are and where things are going, and you know, I love to learn, so that's important. So I think those are the things that are fundamental to me, and are important to me being able to do what I do, and do it successfully.
I think that's so pivotal, because people need balance. They need a really good foundation and lifestyle and purpose, right? So it can't just be work all the time, every day, because some days are going to be super stressful and people are going to really irritate you. So you need that balance. So I love that. Well, thanks a lot, Rhett. I really appreciate it. Is there any other things that you would like to mention that maybe I've missed that you would like to share?
So if you want to find out more about Courageous, you can go to my website, rhettpower.com, or you can go to the Courageous site, which is courageous.io, and find out more. And happy to talk and connect on LinkedIn or via email. But yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can have a discussion. And if you want to talk about the Courage Bootcamp, which is our first product in the company, happy to talk to you about that and how we could help you become more courageous as a leader.
That's amazing. Well, thanks a lot, Rhett, for sharing your story, sharing a little bit about you personally, and best of luck with you and your new career and new business. But don't hesitate to ask. Reach out to me if you have any questions. But thanks a lot again for all the listeners who's joining us, and thanks a lot again for Rhett, our special guest today, for sharing valuable insights about your journey.
Thank you.